second there and went into the black hole of internet whatever. So now we're back. We're making a second one. We're continuing on. I think I'm going to take the long way today. We're going to go down Confederate Avenue and look at the battlefields. That's what we're going to do. Yes, we're back, Dragoon. Man, I like service, my connection dropped for literally a second. It was just a flash, and it's enough to ruin it. It used to not do that. You used to be able to reconnect. It's annoying. James says, just left yesterday, missed it already. Let me tell you about the fun time I had with James and Derek. So, all right, as you know from a couple of weeks ago on AG Today, we had Chris Jones on to talk about the reenactment that was this past weekend out at the Daniel Lady Farm. Chris was kind enough to allow us to go on the tactical with them with our cameras. And so as not to ruin the illusion for the reenactors, they put us in uniforms and embedded us with the different sides. Derek and I were Confederates, and James was on the Union side. And this was the coolest. Now, I would get into reenacting only to do this. I don't know if that's frowned upon or not, but this was fucking fun. Excuse my French. And I gained perspective on a lot of things that we often read about when studying war. Mainly the confusion and how a soldier, for example, I know I've read this a few times, where a soldier can find himself behind enemy lines completely accidentally. And there was a point where, you know, the battle was starting to heat up. Reinforcements were being sent in. We've got almost the full force against the full force. They're getting close to each other. They're fighting over a road on either side of the road. And, you know, Derek and I are with the Confederates, and we're following the action like right in front of us for the most part, right? We're with the guys that we're with, and we're getting shots at them. Once in a while, we would, you know, something would catch our attention on the left flank or the right flank, and we would look, and then maybe see something and wander over there. And I can't tell you how, but somehow we ended up meeting up with each other after being separated and looking around us in a sea of blue uniforms. And we're like, how the hell did we get over here? And we couldn't remember it or figure it out. And it's interesting because your view becomes very myopic. You're focusing on just what's in front of you. These are thick woods, so it also gave me some insight as to what hell it must have been like in the wilderness. Because I remember when it first started, you know, we're going out with the skirmishers, and they're kind of trying to find where the enemy is. And once you hear a couple of shots popping along, you know, we went with, like, I guess it would be like the center column. And so we're paying attention to what's going on over there. Then all of a sudden to the right, I hear a volley, and I was like, oh shit. But I looked to the right, and I couldn't even see our men, let alone the men who fired the volley. It could have been our men, it could have been the Yankees, I don't know. But it was scary because it was like, okay, something's happening over there, but it's not like our direct right, it's kind of our right rear. So a flanking force is, you know, moving around. It was so cool. And then by the end, Chris made it like, it was almost like a video game. which I think was such a cool touch, especially if you want to reach the younger people. There was like gold. There was a storyline first, and it was about Confederate gold that was buried. And there was like a graveyard they made up in the middle of the woods with like bones and everything, and they dug up the grave, and there was the gold. And so then they had to get the gold back to base. But here's another lesson about, I guess, confusion of orders. Everybody knew that you had to bring it back to base. But there was a little, shall we say, fort or redoubt that was built with the each team's flag on a pole in the center. And that was your base. But the guys who captured the booty assumed base was camp. So about maybe, I don't know, 2/3, maybe a third, I don't remember how many we had. But it seemed like about 2/3 of the men ran back to camp, while the other third followed the instructions and ran back to base. But they didn't have the booty. So now there's this small unit holding this fort, and the Confederates that were left out in the field were slowly falling back, being overwhelmed on three sides. And there we are in this fort with an overwhelming number of Union soldiers closing in on three sides. They had sent a little kid as a runner back to the camp to get reinforcements, to get the guys to come back. But they had already kind of taken off their jackets, and they were kind of just sitting there relaxing, and never returned. So reinforcements never came. I kept thinking about Custer at the Little Bighorn. Reno, big village. Bring packs, be quick. W.W. Cook, P.S. Be quick, or bring packs, or whatever the fuck he said. You're waiting, you're looking on the horizon, although we couldn't see the horizon, but he was, you're looking for those reinforcements, and they never come. And so we got overwhelmed, and I guess they won the booty, but they lost the battle. And it was so cool. So this footage we shot was just for B-roll purposes. We're kind of, me and James and Derek are just kind of pooling it for our needs. But we told them that we would make a promo video for them so that they could promote next year's. And so eventually we'll get doing that. But I gotta tell you, it was so much fun. Definitely want to do more stuff like that. So that was a great time. Morning, Barbara. Good morning, Jeff. Morning, James. B. Kells, good morning. Thanks for doing this, Matt. I appreciate it. I can't wait to get out there. I'm going to try to do it in October or November. Good. Make sure you be careful, because that's a busy time of year, especially during the weekends. So you might not have luck getting a good room. So you better make a plan now. Word to the wise. Dragoon was just out there this weekend. Jeff says it looked awesome. Thank you, Matt, for the coffee. Project Pass says it was pure chaos. Lots of units literally walking into each other. Lots of up-close firefights. Yeah. Cursing. Oh, and then there was the added element of civilians. Like women would just run out of nowhere screaming, help, help. And you had to determine were they spies or, with the information they gave you. Some of them had clues. It really was cool. It was very, very imaginative and cool. They had gone out in March to the site, and it was in the woods out on the Daniel Lady Farm, which is enormous, way bigger than I knew it was. And they cleared paths and dug little redoubts or breastworks or whatever. So that was really cool as well. Like the amount of effort they put into it, the thought that they put into it. And I think what we should do is, they won't go for this, but we all get paintball guns and we break up into two teams, but we try to get a lot of people, and we we make it a weekend battle. Jeff says, I'm really jealous of those who were able to go. After hearing about it on AG today, I was more antsy to go. Well, I'm sure now that you heard that, you're really kicking yourself for missing out. We could have made you another cameraman. That's the one thing I feel bad about. I almost had Tad so that it would have been 2 and 2, but he didn't make it, and so it was lopsided. It was 2 and 1, but it's all right. We got enough footage. Matthew says we did something similar at Carnifex Ferry. Reenactments, no audience, just individual units working our way through different scenarios. Tacticals can be fun. They look like, I mean, it reminded me of playing war as a little kid, but way more fun, and way cooler. I mean, you got real muskets and smoke and explosions. And, oh, that's the other thing. You know, like, how does friendly fire happen? I'm getting a shot, and next thing I know, my eardrum is practically blown out because some guys were behind me and they fired over their head or over my head because the enemy was on the other side of the road from me. And I was like, geez, you really do have to pay attention in these things. Now I'm even more deaf than I used to be. Wonder Monkey, you missed everything. You missed the war. Did I miss the battle? You missed the entire war. Jeff Pasnick says, Wonder Monkey, you missed the code word for the grand prize. That's true. You did do that. Sanuva?